So those were those two first features on, concepts linked to students' backgrounds and new and prior learning. And the next piece is developing key vocabulary. So I believe I shared last time with you the idea of communicative competence and that bricks, mortar, and buildings sort of concepts from Jeff Tweers. And so if we look at, and this probably now with our K-3 curriculum, we're probably all becoming more and more familiar with Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 vocabulary. And so just as a refresher, Tier 1 usually makes up about 80% of written text. Those are our high frequency words that we use in everyday conversation. Our Tier 2 words are the 8 to 10% of informational, technical, literary text. And I have a link to the academic word list here, but also just remember that Tier 2 words are those words that have multiple meanings. And I have some examples following here. And then the Tier 3 is that, subject specific. Those are our brick words that relate to the particular fields of knowledge and that, is dealing with the concepts that we're teaching. I was in a Bio 20 class last week, and they were talking about your erythrocytes and leukocytes and all that kind of stuff, but that's not something that we would use in day-to-day unless you're like a doctor. So, and then just thinking about the words that we really want to focus on for our learners, because we want to make sure that that academic language is continually being developed and fostered. I understand when our students are brand new, we need to help them develop that functional language, the functional vocabulary, so that they can survive in school, know where the bathroom is, know how to ask to go to the bathroom, and make friends and things like that. So we want to pay attention to that as well. But when it comes to academic language and the content, we want to kind of focus on that Tier 2, because I think teachers, we're all really good at teaching those brick words, like erythrocytes and leukocytes and photosynthesis and democracy. But it's that Tier 2 words that, like define and compare and analyze and illustrate. Those are words that happen across all subject areas and that we want to make sure that our students are familiar with, because those are usually on assessment questions, they're on PATs, they're on things like that. So we want to make sure that we can catch them up on those words. So just as an example, what Tier 2 words look like is, this is from grade 5 social studies textbook. These are all the Tier 2 words from there, but just as an example, how Tier 2 words have multiple meanings. If you think about solutions, you have, solutions, you have a solution in math, you have a solution to a problem, but you also have solutions in science when you take, sugar and water, and then you have a solution, right? Or major, you have Major League Baseball, you have Major League Soccer, you have a major in the Army, you have a major key in music, you have what your particular focus is. My major is education, so there's so many different multiple meanings for those. So which one do I need to pay attention to, and making that apparent for students. So terminal is another one, and reactions. And then as we move up through the grades, like here's grade 8 social studies, we can see that those words are becoming more and more frequent and more abstract as we're moving through that process. And then when we get to grade 10, this is just from one chapter from the social studies textbook of the Tier 2 words here. But what we can notice here is what we want to do as teachers. And so looking at the word global, like if students know what a globe is and know that it's the world, thinking about that global is, just an adjective of globe, right? And then globalization is that abstract concept of, moving things around the world. And we need to remember that a lot of languages don't add affixes and or prefixes and suffixes to words like we do in English. And so students may not realize that global, and globalization are all interconnected. So we want to make sure that when we're introducing those, the words to our students and vocabulary, that we're, explicitly pointing that out for them and developing that. So, and, just the importance about academic language, thinking about summarize. And if we're just using oral language, like you mentioned earlier, Crystal, like if we're just talking, maybe when they think about summarize, that they think that it's just turning their book into summer, making it summer, instead of like what summarize is actually all about. So we want to have, the actual word and dealing with, that this means it's part of summary and not just adding some sunglasses to your book. One great way of developing that bricks and mortar words as well, and and our tier 2 words, is providing sentence frames. And having a visual, providing a sentence frame, you're planning ahead, what's kind of, you've set your language objectives that can help you determine what kind of sentence frame you want your students to construct by the end of the lesson. And if you think about like a visual like this, then there's so many sentences that a student can come up with, right? So like pumice is an igneous type of rock that was formed by, heat, right? So, and then they can just kind of go through the list. And so that's a great opportunity to build that academic language. When you're thinking about affixes and like the prefixes, suffixes, developing just kind of a word wall or a kind of the focus words, and thinking about how those words are developing and how they can be transformed, looking at the word roots. And because the thing is we want to deal with these tier 2 words, right? Like this may be in a reading, form and locate, geology, but a lot of these words, they're going to be found in other subject areas like form and locate. And so we want to give students that opportunity to, build on that. And maybe if you work collaboratively with other subject areas, and, that we're going to, work on these sets of words for this week, and slowly, build that into practice. And there's some resources here for common word roots, and Morpheme Mondays is somebody that I found on Twitter. And so you can he has every Monday, he has a different word root, and playing with that. And then there's some visuals for science root words as well. So I'll let you explore some of those. I've also put a digital word wall that kind of follows this premise here, that maybe, you can have students upload into Google Classroom and add to those. And when we're thinking about vocabulary, we need to think about that word consciousness. And this is from Echeveria's Folks in Shorts book, Making Content Comprehensible for English Learners, that the SIOP model is. And so they say Stahl and Nagy suggest the importance of developing students' word consciousness. And that's a phrase used to describe the interest in and awareness of words, which should be a goal of vocabulary instruction. So, and then so we want activities where students manipulate words, sort words, and then laugh and giggle about funny words, right? And choose words they want to know more, to know about, are as important as for vocabulary growth as the more academic aspects of vocabulary teaching and word learning. So that manipulation piece and that interacting with it are key to it, because we need at least 7 exposures to a word in order for it to, become part of our schema and, you know, plant itself in our hippocampus. So we want to make sure that we're giving students lots of different opportunities, not just for on one day, but repeated throughout the unit and recycling it and going back to it. So that's one idea. I'm just looking at the clock here. I have an activity here, and I'll just, yeah, I still have a few more slides, but on your own, if you want to try out this word wall, and just sorting words to tier 2 and tier 3 words. So that's just an opportunity when you're going through the slides again, and you can play around with this. And word wall is a great resource for, you know, playing with vocabulary and manipulating in a digital format. And I think you can have 5 free ones, and then if you want more, then of course you have to pay. But yeah, so, or you can just develop 5 and then delete them and, you know, recycle them as you go along. So it's called wordwall.net. And, you know, just word sorts is another, like if we think back to the PWIM, having word sorts, there's 2 links here for creating word sorts. One is WordWall, one is Flippity, and that you can have students manipulate words based on their affixes or their suffixes, or maybe on different concepts as well. So word sorts are a great way of manipulating that. Another great activity for developing vocabulary, understanding concepts, is concept definition maps. And if you think back to that academic language function chart that I gave you last week or last month to think about building language objectives, there is a column that has graphic organizers to suggest that go along with that type of purpose of academic language that you're going with. So these are just a couple of options of dealing with, you know, different concept definitions. And here's a couple of other resources, Frere model for you. So if you want to make a copy of this template, I think Frere model is a great resource. It's used in lots of different formats. You know, the particular one that I have here is just, you know, giving a word, what's the definition, what is it in their home language, adding an image or a GIF, and using some examples or a sentence that they create. And I have a video here just going through the process of how you can add, students can make their own GIFs or adding a GIF to their Frere model. So that's another option, and it's going to start playing. I change my settings. So barrier games are another way to just play with language and play with vocabulary. So if you look at these 2 images here of, you know, the park scene, this is where I use cleanup.pictures. And so you can see that there's a red balloon on this first picture, and I erased it in this other picture. And the purple balloon is in this picture, but I erased it out of this picture. So, you know, students can compare, like, I see so-and-so many balloons, or I see so-and-so many ducks or whatever. Or, you know, barrier games is where one student has the 3D version of the shape, and then the other person has the net. And so there's some other links for activities in here as well. So for some ideas about barrier games, but just getting students talking and interacting with the vocabulary and the concepts at hand. And then if we think about translation devices, there's a way that you can use Google Translate and Google Sheets, and you know, you can slowly build on that, you know, different plant parts as this one. And so there's the codes that you can use, and there's a template over there for you to use and play around with. And if we think again, which words we want to focus on, this is just an example from a grade 7 math textbook. And so, and I think teachers are really good at, helping students pick out like what's the most important parts of this, but we may not notice that students maybe not understand what lowest point or highest point is. So if we think about some of the words that we want to focus on for our students, and breaking them down into, tier 2 and tier 3 words. Just click through all these that I've highlighted. But then if we categorize those, like our brick words, our tier 3 words that students should know are like measurement, rational number, subtraction statement, distance. But then the mortar words that they need to understand this problem are like lowest point, highest point, below, above, all those high frequency words and prepositional phrases and things like that they need to focus on. And, again, tapping in and adding those visuals, is a huge benefit for our students. And really, like if you had a word problem on an exam and you just you think about that, like how can I break this down for my student, and just incorporating a simple visual like that, that can probably be of a great benefit for that student navigating that problem. And you're not giving the answers away, so you're still, like I know some people, they think, oh, if I give them too much information, then they're, they might, I don't know, I'll stop. So, and then just again, thinking about that academic language functions and thinking about the words that students would need to complete those language functions. So if their purpose of the task is to compare, are we providing that information for students that, similar to, different than, however, but things like that. So that's the other reason why we want to plan for, with the language that our students are going to be using and the background knowledge in our lessons, because we want to make sure that we're touching all of our bases, right? So, and that universal design for learning, sort of making sure that there's multiple entry points. So I think we got 3 minutes left, so I won't put you in breakout rooms. And but just does anybody want to share some of their thinking about this question? So what are some elements of academic language that you've noticed? I'm not sure if I've made that clear enough in what I've shared, but I'll let you think about that question a little bit. And what's the importance of academic language for multilingual students? So we won't deal with the signals, the stems, the shares, the assess, but what's some ideas that you may have from that?
And the one thing I've noticed with the ELLs is with the academic language, sometimes the directions that are asking them to follow through with a procedure can be misunderstood. So being able to really catch those instructional words before moving ahead too quickly, we found has been important for the success with these little guys.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we want to think about that academic language, that and those multiple meanings, because that can lead to misunderstandings as well, and that it's in a visual sort of way as well, right? So so that they, when they see the words summarized or hear the words summarized, they don't think that they're going to decorate their book, right? So